I had 15 years with the Asian American Press in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's an ethnic weekly, Pan-Asian. So there's 42 different Asian ethnic groups in the Twin Cities. So it was an exciting place to be in the late 90s when I graduated school. I was in the military twice. I graduated high school in '82, but went in the Army, got out, did 3 years of college, went back in the Army for 3 years, and then finished school with journalism as a minor. I had a history minor, I changed it to journalism. But I wound up at this Asian community paper, and I had just taken a year of Japanese, and even though it was a Vietnamese-owned paper, so it didn't have much relevance, but it did as far as I think my interest in the community kind of got me in there. I worked into a lot of nonprofit stuff, and eventually became the editor of the paper. And other than a year in International Falls up on the Canadian border for a daily up there, I spent my whole time there. But as far as news goes, ethnic media gave me a different perspective, but the rules are the same as far as like AP. You still have to kind of, you're working with facts and organizing information the same way, but when you learn and appreciate the issues that confront communities of color, you just approach, you kind of understand institutional racism, I won't call them special needs, but just the needs of refugee and immigrant communities are much different than the mainstream communities, and they tend to be, you have to become a voice for those at the same time but it's still about accurate information. So it's just, you learn what perspective means, I think, when you work for different communities. When I go to a new community and start again, you have to learn a lot really quick, and you make a lot of mistakes, I think. You get a lot of phone calls, and so and the same thing here. I think working in courts and police was fortunate because it's such a structured beat that there's not a lot of chance for error. The information that you get is right there in the hearings, right there in black and white on paper. But when I go out and do a community story, every story I do has got a whole wealth of background that I don't even know, and I have to learn that before somebody else has been here takes that for granted. Some of the pictures I left in there were from when I first got here. When you're looking for stories, you don't know all everybody, you don't know the news yet, and I'm sitting there on Sunday by myself, and so this will happen. I'll get something comes over the scanner. There's a big fight at the Anahola Beach, and you go down there, and there's two families that got their tents too close to each other, and after a few beers, and pretty soon the tempers fly. So by the time I get down there, the police are going, "What are you doing here?" So they're usually nice, but I think in this kind of situation, it was just kind of, you could just feel it that this isn't a good media thing, So here's when I go to court, Fifth Circuit in the morning. You never know what's going to be there day to day. The longer I'm there and I'm at a hearing and then they schedule something in the future, I write it down and I know on the calendar. But from day to day, I still need to go there to see what's on the calendar because they'll never have it more than a few days ahead. It's not accessible online, and I can't really call many people to know what's going on from day to day. There's always something new. So I still make a point to go there at 8 o'clock every morning and see what's on the calendar because there might be something I overlooked. The way I get around, so part of it is just not, if you don't have, by the time the thing gets into court, and if you're not aware of it, of the case, and then you see it on the calendar that day, you can't go request a file because it's in chambers. The judge has it in his chambers, and because it's going to be in the hearing that day. And then it's probably not going to make it back into the files for about a week. By the time they get all the stuff they need and put it back, and all the orders and the motions, and then it gets back in there, it's past its newsworthiness to me. So the way around that is to actually just sit through the hearings. And if I'm there from 8, and Judge Valenciano's starts at 8, and Judge Watanabe starts at 9, and some days both their calendars are done by 10. Some days I'm there till 1 p.m. It's hard. When I first got here, I thought, well, good trials, that's where your good stories are. Because even if it's something light, there's always enough testimony to make it interesting. And then because it's a jury trial, it's just always a story. You can always just say a jury found somebody guilty or innocent of whatever, And but the longer I'm here, the more difficult it is to stay to a trial because of the time involved. If it's a 3-day trial, I can't just dedicate all my time to that. I still got to get a couple stories out a day, or at least one, So what I try to do is, I go to the hearing, and when then they decide that at the jury trial day, they know beforehand that it's probably going to go to trial, because they refuse to change a plea or whatever, and they've already gone through the pre-trial hearing with the judge, and so it's expected, and they're planning for it. So they have the jury coming in and everything, but they still go through the formality of the hearing that day, where the attorneys say, no, we haven't reached a resolution in case we're going to jury trial, and then they go through the jury selection, and so I don't have to sit through all that, but I try to find out when the jury selection is going to be done. Usually it's probably late morning, early afternoon, and then I come back and catch the opening statements from the prosecutor and from the defense attorney, because then they're given the kind of, this is what this case is about from the perspective of the defense. Here's what the case is about from the perspective of the prosecution. That gives you your outline, your whole story. And then if it's really good story, you want to stay there and hear the witnesses. There'll be a policeman comes in and say, yeah, I arrested this guy and he was chasing around with a stick or something. Then there'll be defense witnesses, and rebuttals and things. And sometimes this adds more weight to the story. If it's kind of a simple case and you don't have a lot of time, then I try to come back when the last day, if it's a 2-day trial, a 3-day trial, whatever, I try to come back when they do the final arguments, because then the attorneys are going to surmise everything that the witness has said, and then if it's not that big a case, then you can kind of learn the whole case and put it all together in a few paragraphs based on what they said, and then what the verdict is. But usually the way you'd have to do that is go to pacer.gov, pacer.gov, and you create an account there, and they actually want you to buy stuff on there. But you can actually look at some of the cover forms without buying them, and that way you can find out where the status of the case is in federal court. And if it's over there, you really don't know unless you know. It'll tell you who the attorneys are, what the status of the case is, what's been filed, who the judges are, who the attorneys are, and how to count. Then you just Google them and find out their phone numbers and go from there. So it does give you a foothold into a case that otherwise you wouldn't know anything about, because it's over in Oahu. So over here you use there's a state. The state court site is the Hawaii State Court, and then on that you can go to Fifth Circuit and stuff. But use the Hohiki, I think H-O-Okina-O-H-I-K-I, and you can put in the case number. If you put in the person's name, something might come up, but then you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff.
Database.
Yeah, it's their system to let you know where a case is at.
Federal court.
Yeah, no, this would be the circuit court.
The circuit.
Yeah, so that's if you find out if you go to the Fifth Circuit and look at the calendar, or just find out you can find the name on there. But that's if you go to the court, if you get in the case number, and then you're going to see a variety of options. It'll say charges and parties to the case. Look in case info and documents. Documents won't actually let you see anything that was filed. It'll just tell you what was filed. But if you click on court minutes and then go to more minutes or something like that, underneath that another option, and it'll give you a couple paragraphs about what happened in the hearing that day. And a lot of times if I can't attend something, I can put something together from that. And then once I know what happened, then I can ask an attorney or something directly and say, what does this mean? They won't usually comment on a case, but if you ask them a specific question for a clarification, they're usually very happy to do that. Even you can't be everywhere at once. You do get a wealth of information, and when it's hard to get it, you just learn the word they provided and get it that way. But that's really what this is about, and I can go there and just be the reporter on the spot of every day, but by and large, if you really want to make your job interesting and have people say good job and stuff, it's when you find stuff that's really useful and it makes people react to stuff. That's not to sensationalize something, but just to bring out stuff that wasn't known or it's useful. That's kind of what we want to do. Yes, ma'am.
Is it hard to not let your bias get in the way when you're interviewing or writing an article on certain issues that you feel strongly about?
I think now I feel funny. I feel funnier now about that than I ever used to. I think I'm at a point now where I know what they are. I think when I was younger, I was perfectly a blank. I was purposely a blank slate. I would just like be so aware of that to not be. But at the same time, I didn't understand what my real perspectives were. So they were still making their way into there. I was probably much more liberal than I like to think I was, you know. But it was. But now that I'm older and I kind of shape opinions that are stronger, I tend to be. I don't think it works my way into the writing. I think because I'm aware of them, but I'm just, for some reason, I'm just less concerned about voicing it. You know, I think sometimes I have to watch myself, not through my writing, but I'm just like, you know, when I'm in an interview and I have to watch what I say. If I disagree or agree with something, you just kind of have to step back and find that objectivity again.
Obviously, like moving to from Canada and stuff, how have you built like a good trust relationship with KPD and like getting information from them and stuff?
That's a real good question, because people come at this from different ways. I think some reporters are real assertive and aren't afraid. You know, they're after some information and they know their rights, and they'll confront people with, you know, you have to tell me this, and then there's that balance where you got to work with these people every day, and they're doing their job, and you got to give them the benefit of the doubt a lot, and you know, especially when they're very good people, being in the court every day, I have developed, you know, very, you know, friendly terms with everyone on both sides of the court, and with the police especially. Every story is different. Sometimes it just, they want you to find it and you're just not, and other times it just falls in your lap, you know, and it just depends how resourceful you can be and how well you know these people, you know? But back again, I guess it's a way, at the end of the day, you want to, I think the one thing I try to keep in mind is it's a responsibility of the community to kind of bring out this accurate information, whether it's a good reflection on the department or the county or not, but there's a tendency sometimes to sensationalize or be malicious about something, or overly suspicious, or kind of putting them on the defensive too much. So I try to, you know, keep the institution itself as being good. You know, the police are there to protect and serve. The courts are there to weigh the evidence and let the jury decide, the judge decide.